Ronnie tells me, Bavon, I have a message that I've been sent to deliver to you face to face. So I start telling him, okay, I'll create time, we meet. So we meet on a Monday. So he's calling a lot, so he comes. So he tells me, listen, there's this money that Mudavadi and his sons, they made arrangement for this money to come. It's very important that you allow this restructuring of the federation to happen, because that's the only way these guys will allow that money to come into the federation. And then he tells me, najua unaonaga hizi federation kama FKF, pesa inakuja inapotea, huyu jamaa anashikwa anapelekwa, wanasema ni 700,000 when it's almost 100 million that was stolen. You know, easy cases naisha. So I asked Ronnie, what are you trying to say? Why can't you just be straight with me and tell me what it is that you're trying to say? So what you're trying to say is that you guys want to use the federation for money to come in and you take off with this money. Because, you know, I wouldn't want a situation where you guys use the federation, you bring in money, and then you disappear with that money, and then the CEO now, you know, is the one who's left in a funny situation. So he tells me, bana, unajua hii itakuwa ngumu tayari, kwa sababu itakuwa ngumu kwa sababu watu washajipanga tayari. So that's the guy, watu wamejipangaje. Sheria, sheria, my name's Bavon Joseph Ojwang. By profession, I'm an engineer, did metallurgy, mechanical engineering. Focused more in business around gaming and esports. So I've been in that space for quite a while. I've been running the Esports Kenya Federation since 2018. And one is, I was part of the board as a vice chairman. I'm the founder of the Esports Kenya Federation, and I was also the vice chairman and acting CEO, because the idea was that at some point when we were well established, then, you know, we would competitively look for a CEO to now run the operations. 2 weeks ago, they are so there are guys who masquerading as esports officials decided to run an election, which to me is an illegal one. I was not involved in the election itself. I think it was fair that if things were being done right, I should have been given an opportunity to contest for my position as vice president, you know, try to defend myself. Even besides getting there, we have a constitution in place that stipulates how an election is supposed to be carried out. That constitution was not followed, because if it was followed, as the CEO, I should have been notified. I should have called for an AGM. I should have you know, then set up. What the Constitution asks for is that we have to set up an election board. So this election board comes up with rules for the elections. So none of this happened. You know, just woke up one day. My friends were telling me that, you know, there's an election happening. Are you aware of it? I told them I don't know about it. So these guys, they ran this election. And now they've decided, like, they've taken over the operations of the federation. Immediately after the fraud election, they went to the media. They announced to the media that the first activity is the organizing for a Kenyan team to go for the global games in Saudi, which they're jumping on a project that I've been running for a month already, you know. So they'd already seen that opportunity, you know. I can give evidence to show that I ran the national qualifiers for the Saudi Games. And then after the national qualifiers, we were now getting into the regional qualifiers, where Kenya was playing a couple of other countries in Africa. We played our first tournament, which was Dota 2, men and female. Male we lost, female qualified, so the female team will be going to Saudi. Then the week that followed, we were to play e-football, which now these guys jumped in, took over, went to the public, said, okay, we're running this thing, and they went to Huawei and took money, because that's the whole idea. The whole idea was take over the federation and take the money, because I've done so much, and I've aligned a couple of resources and partners who are coming on board. And so the idea is taking that money. So after e-football, this weekend, the weekend they just passed, we had another qualifier for Street Fighter. And I remember doing that qualifier, the lady that I put in charge of organizing the events. So she calls me, she tells me that our player doesn't have a cam, because you need to be recording yourself when you're playing. You need to be streaming. And I tell her, okay, these guys took over eFootball. Why don't you ask them to invest in this? She calls them, she tells them they switch off the phone. So she has to come back to me. These guys have switched off their phone. So I have to give money for the cam. So when real work is required, they're not there. I should be the one spending. And then they're the ones who run to the media to take glory for that. So around 2014, I had these ideas of how I could utilize the virtual space to introduce a couple of products. And one of my biggest achievements is back in the days when parents were to get games for their kids, they used to buy CD discs from the hawkers on the road. And then suddenly right now parents can access kids' games on their mobile phones. That was my initiative. I did that with Huawei and Safaricom. And when I was going for these meetings, I also had an idea of setting up a national lottery that will help support sports. And at that time is when I ran into Honorable Mudavadi. And I told him about my plans, which he got excited. He said, okay, can we be partners in this? So we're going to have a national lottery and a sports fund, So you're going to have a sports fund, and then the national lottery will fund the sports fund. So we started having a couple of meetings with Mudavadi. We went to Huawei because I was already talking to Huawei as a technical partner. So I went to Huawei, myself, him, and his two sons, Moses and Michael. So we had a lengthy meeting where I laid out what my plans were, what we were going to do. Unfortunately, of course, he wasn't in the government then, but he's talking to the government circle. I saw the government roll out the sports fund minus the national lottery, and now they're using the betting companies to fund the sports fund. Because he wasn't in the government, of course, eventually we set up a lottery company. It's called Sports Lotto. The licenses are there. As a company, we couldn't do much with it because, we were not well politically aligned back then. And then our discussions, our interaction just fizzled off. I went ahead and started doing my own things. Did the gaming thing with Huawei and Safaricom. It's called Cheza Games. Unfortunately, at some point, that service was terminated. Then I went ahead to now register the Esports Federation. Because I realized that certain esports activities required certain licenses. At that point is when I realized that the space was not regulated. So I went to the government and asked the government if I could form a federation, which I was then allowed to be able to do that. And the requirement of the Sports Act is that when you're setting up a federation, you should have a chairman, a vice chairman, secretary general, and a treasurer. So I invited these gentlemen. A chairman that I put there was Mr. Shimaka. I gave him that position because it was the requirement of the minister for them to allow me to set up the federation. So I had to just bring him in. Secretary General was Omar Sadiq, who was Shimaka's friend. I didn't know him very well, so Shimaka brought him. And then the treasurer was Alan Wavomba, who was now my friend. So we set up the federation, and we were given an interim license, meaning that we had to now do a couple of things and then hold an election and then now a permanent board in place. So then, just I think about a year or so, then the COVID situation happened. So it meant we couldn't do anything, no elections, no nothing. So activities were shut down totally. So come this year, and we have a new government in place. And there's this friend of mine is called Ronnie Mamba. So I met Ronnie some time back because one of the ideas of how I wanted to run esports is I wanted to run an esports league alongside the National Football League, Premier League, so that you have the National Premier League and an E-League at the same time. And at that point is when someone introduced me to Ronnie, told me that Ronnie has a relationship with the president of FKF, back then, that he was going to enable this meeting happen. So at that time is when I met Ronnie, and we started discussing, and I gave him an idea of what my thoughts are. So Ronnie, so he used to come to my house, he comes to my house, we meet out there, we hang out, I'm giving him ideas around esports and what I'd like to achieve with esports. And then he went ahead and registered a gaming company called Index Gaming. So the first project that I was involved in, that involved taking a Kenyan team overseas, was last year in August when we were included in Commonwealth Games. And at that time I selected a gaming company called Ludic Games. Ludic Games belongs to Liquid Telecom. And I gave that contract to Liquid Telecom. So Liquid Telecom organized, Ludic Games actually organized the Commonwealth Games, and a Kenyan team went to Birmingham for that. The next assignment was the Global Games in Turkey in December. For the Turkey Games, I gave that assignment to Index Gaming now, Ronnie. So Ronnie organized the qualifiers. I gave him money, okay, to organize the national qualifier. He didn't use his money. I gave him money. And we had one sponsor, Scope Media. We had a very bad experience with Scope Media because that's when I kind of began to see who the individual Ronnie was, because when Scope Media wanted to send money to me, I told them to send the money directly to Index Gaming. It was about 1.5 million. And the guy just switched off his phone the moment he received the money. So it became an issue. We were chasing him up and down. So we actually got a hold of him, and eventually we did the tournament, but it was kind of a scary moment. So after the Turkey Games, it was just a funny thing, This guy didn't want to even have the logo of the federation on the Kenyan jersey. He was behaving funny all along. And so they traveled to Turkey and they come back, and Ronnie calls me. He tells me that he's gotten some people who would like to help with the funding of the federation. Because since we set up the federation, up to today, we've never received 1 shilling from the government. Not a single shilling. All these things I've been doing from my own pocket. So Ronnie comes, he tells me, I've got these guys who are willing to fund. So I say, okay, it's okay. I can have a meeting with them. And he comes and picks me, and we go to Riverside. And, I see we are turning into Mudavadi's compound, because I've been there so many times. So when we get there, I get to meet, we get into the meeting room, and so I get introduced to a guy who calls himself Big Mo. So he tells me that he's a nephew to Mudavadi. So I tell him it's okay. But when we're still there, so he tells me Michael is coming, Michael Mudavadi. So I know Michael very well, because we've interacted, Michael and Moses, and their father, we've interacted a lot. So Michael comes in, and Michael sits there and he tells me, oh, Bavon, we've been talking to Mzee. Mzee is interested in supporting esports, but he's got a couple of questions. He wants to know where the money is in esports, So, we'd like you to give us some ideas on how this can be done. I go in and, I give them ideas on where the opportunities are. And then we leave it at that. The following day, Big Mo calls me. He tells me that they've gone, they've told Mzee, they've briefed Mzee. Mzee doesn't seem to understand yet if I could put this in writing. So I write some document. I send it to Big Mo. He tells me, it's in PDF, why don't you, convert it into Word form? So I knew he wanted to edit. So of course I do that and I send to him. A couple of days down the line, he tells me, we are willing to support the federation, but what you need to do is to give us a contract. They have a company, a media company, marketing company, I think. So I say, give us a contract so that we can help source funding for the federation. So I say, it's okay. So he sends me details. The company is called Fourth House. So I do a contract to Fourth House for a consultant for the federation and to help with the sourcing for funding. So we sign. On this particular trip that Index Gaming did to Turkey, when I was sending him money to go and print the jerseys, he called me, told me that the CS for Sports, Ababu, would like to take pictures with the team. So I asked him, how quickly have you reached out to this guy? He tells me, no, it's Mudavadi's kids who've made arrangement for this. So actually the team went and took pictures with Ababu, and Ababu gave them some money, okay? And then they traveled. So we are back to where I was now. I've already given contracts to Fourth House. I'm expecting now Fourth House to come back to me, and we go back to the same stories. Oh, give us, so we've exchanged numbers and they can see my statuses. So every time they see I've posted a poster for any activity, this guy called himself Big Mo, calls me, tells me, send us a budget for this. We see if we can get money for this. So I send them budget. So the moment you send them budgets, is the same thing. Convert it to Word. So convert it to Word, I send it to them. Or write something to the ministry. Write something to Ababu. I'm writing all these letters, and I'm sending them. And it's always issue of put it back in Word format and send it back to us. I'm doing that all the time. Now there's a funny situation that was actually building up, and that is that every time Ronnie has a tournament with Mudavadi's kids and Ababu, they'll kind of get funding for it, okay? And because I was having very funny experiences with Ronnie, and at that time we were talking to as African Federation. So apart from having the National Kenya Federation, other countries also have federation. Then we are affiliated to a bigger global federation. It's called Global Esports Federation. But among the African federations, we were trying to look for funding. So we talk among ourselves. And the Secretary General of Esports Tunisia is called Tumi. So Tumi tells me, Bavon, I have links to the Prince of Saudi. I think this guy, can help us, esports. I say, yeah, that could be a good idea. So I put proposals together. So I put proposals together, some ideas are sent to him. And actually he reaches out to the Prince. And the Prince agrees to support esports in Africa. And the first thing he does is that he organizes a tournament between Arab countries and African countries. So it was called Afro-Arab, okay? So we start preparations for Afro-Arab. Because of the experiences that I had with Index, I decided to give Afro-Arab to another company now to run the qualifiers for me. So I picked a company called AfriGamer, So I told AfriGamer, can you organize these tournaments for me? So AfriGamer gets involved, so we ran the national qualifiers. And then for this particular one, did we have regional? Yeah, then we had a few regional qualifiers. And then the Kenyan team traveled to Saudi, which was it's about now 2 months since that event happened. But for this one, I didn't include index gaming. But at that time is when this funny situation with Ababu now actually came out so clearly. Because I reached out to the Ministry of Sports and to Ababu and I told him, okay, we've got this event, can the ministry put in some money? The ministry was non-responsive, totally quiet. After we'd done all the qualifiers, everything, so it's me and AfriGamer spending our own money, trying to get these qualifiers happening. Because now the Prince and Saudi are just coming to take up the team. The moment the team is ready, now we're sending them to Saudi. That's when now they come in with tickets and visas and everything. So I look for Babu personally. I go to an event and I get him and I sit him down. So we are like 3 days to the team traveling to Saudi. And I tell Ababu, man, this team is traveling, why can't you just chip in a little bit? He tells me, you write me a budget. I tell him, I wrote a budget to your office a couple of weeks ago, no response. He says, even if it's there, I've not seen it. Oh, if it's there, I'll need 6 months for me to get you any money. So I tell him, okay, fine, there's no problem. Could you just come up and flag off the team? He says it's okay, so he calls his PA, she's called Harriet. So I had 2 things I wanted from him. One was to get him to flag the Kenyan team. 2 is I have an opportunity to create a game, a local game. And I've partners for this already. And I wanted to create a game around Eliud Kipchoge. So I tell the guy I'd like to have a meeting with Eliud. So he tells Harriet, also get Eliud's team so that they have a meeting with Bavon. And Harriet says, okay. So he tells Harriet that the team can come on Friday. So that's a Wednesday. He said the team can come on Friday so he can flag off the team. From that day on Wednesday, my calls were not being answered. But AfriGamer took the team to Saudi Arabia. On the day of the travel, there was a little bit of issues at the airport. When the team arrived there is when we realized that. So Qatar Airways insisted they wanted insurance for these players. These are things that were not factored in the budget. So I'm in Nigeria, so we had to quickly put money together, send the money back. The team actually missed the flight for the first day, rescheduling all the flights. It became so expensive. The government is not there to help. So the team travels and they come back with one of the best performance ever for the Kenyan Esports. We became, in eFootball, we were number 2, So there's even a prize money being sent for the gamer who's number 2, and some money to support the federation. So all this is money that is also being targeted as well. And then we've had discussions with the Prince. The Prince would like to, okay, Saudi Arabia, if you just research, they're spending massive amounts of money in esports. They want to be the center for esports globally. They spent about $36 billion, until the other day, just setting up an arena for gaming. For the Afro-Arab, they spent another $8 billion. The other day, they bought a stake in 10 cents. So they're investing in esports big time. So the Prince said, why don't you guys invite me to Kenya? Because I want to roll out my African plans for esports through Kenya. So he wants to come and invest now. And you see all this information, I'm sharing them with the rest of my board members. I'm sharing this information with the Mudavadi's kids. Everything that, because you see, at some point I thought these guys would eventually be good partners to me. So now After the team came back from Saudi, I received a call from this guy, now call himself Big Mo. And Big Mo tells me that Mudavadi and the sons, they've been meeting some people around esports who are willing to invest in esports. So I said, okay, that's a good idea. It's if there's anybody who wants to invest, I'm open to that. And Big Mo tells me that for us to invest, we'd like to restructure the federation. And restructuring the federation means that you bring in our people into the federation, so that when this money comes in, we have eyes on the money and how it gets spent. So I tell Big Mo, I don't have a problem with restructuring the federation, but it has to be done as per the constitution, because actually we're in the process of planning for an election. So, it's something that is feasible. We can be able to do that. So he tells me that, so we stay, after a couple of days, I get, now I call Moses, David's elder son. So I call Moses on something else. And then when we're winding up, Moses tells me, but I hope you are aware there's an election in a month's time. No, at the end of the month. I tell him, no, I'm not aware of anything like that. Who's planning for an election? So he tells me, okay, Big Mo will call you and tell you about it. So I call Big Mo. I tell Big Mo, Moses is telling me that there's some election. He says, yes, we are planning for an election. And what we've decided to do is to introduce a position of a president. So the board will remain, but then there will be a position of a president. And I want Ronnie to be the president. So I tell the guy, oh, hold on, man. This is not making sense. You just don't wake up and decide, this kind of stuff on behalf of the federation, One, that kind of restructuring doesn't make sense. How can you have a board that has a chairman and then you have a president? Then what are the roles of these two different offices? Yeah. So ask him, give me details of this. He says, no. And I tell him, listen, number two, I don't like Ronnie. So I'm not going to let Ronnie come into my federation as a president or anything. So we're having heated exchanges, and I tell him, listen, you go form your federation and make Ronnie the president, but he cannot be president. He doesn't even pass the integrity test for him to be whatever position that you train. So just for him to be. So we actually have very bad exchange between us. And then the following day, I see a missed call from Ronnie, and I call Ronnie, and Ronnie says, Bavon, we've been talking to your chairman, who's Shimaka, and the Secretary General, Omar, and we have a meeting on Friday at Mudavadi's offices in Riverside. And the meetings are on Friday because Omar is away, so when you'll be around, so you have to attend. So I didn't respond to Ronnie, but after we hung the call, I texted Omar, Sadiq, and Shimaka, the chairman. I told them, listen, I will not go for that meeting. Number two, you guys should not try to endorse an illegal process, okay? Don't try to endorse an illegal process. That's just what I've got. Those messages are sent to them. They didn't respond. So that week, that Friday happens, I didn't go for the meeting. I think they went. Then on Saturday, Ronnie calls me. Ronnie tells me, Bavon, I have a message that I've been sent to deliver to you face to face. So I tell him, okay, I'll create time, we meet. So I was not available on Saturday, Sunday, so we meet on a Monday. So he's calling a lot, so he comes. So he tells me, listen, there's this money that Mudavadi and his sons they made arrangement for this money to come. And it's very important that you allow this restructuring of the federation to happen, because that's the only way these guys will allow that money to come into the federation. And then he tells me, najua unaonaga hizi federation kama FKF, pesa inakuja inapotea, huyu jamaa anashikwa anapelekwa, wanasema ni 700,000 when it's almost 100 million that was stolen. You know, easy cases inaisha. So I asked Ronnie, what are you trying to say? Why can't you just be straight with me and tell me what it is that you're trying to say? So what you're trying to say is that you guys want to use the federation for money to come in and you take off with this money. So I'm kind of reading between the lines. So I tell Ronnie, listen, for me to support any restructuring, one, I will need a full disclosure of how much is involved, the source of this money. Number three, I will want, if we run these elections, I have to retain my position as a vice president. And if there's any situation where money will come in, you know, I have to be in a place where I'm also signing on it. Because, you know, I wouldn't want a situation where you guys use the federation, you bring in money, and then you disappear with that money, and then the CEO now, you know, is the one who's left in a funny situation. So he tells me, bana, unajua hii itakuwa ngumu tayari, kwa sababu itakuwa ngumu kwa sababu watu washajipanga tayari. So that's the guy, watu wamejipangaje? You know, nani amejipanga for what? Tunajua tutakuwa na elections, people will just come, tutapiga mapicha, you know, and we put it in the media and we say elections have happened. I tell everyone, listen, any election like that, anyone will walk to court and put a stop to it. You know, so if it's anything that doesn't follow the process that the Constitution has in place, you'll still get stuck with this situation, you know. So you shouldn't be trying to push for something that, one, will put people in a very funny situation, and then will leave the federation with court cases. And then number three, you know, with so many scandals, you know, we're in a place where the federation is just beginning to find its footing, you know. And if, you know, you run into scandals right away, then you lose the faith of the general public. So he tells me, so he asks me, now what do I go and tell these guys? I tell him, you go and tell them that I think I'll not go along with this plan until you guys are very clear on you know, who wants to bring in the money, how much the money that is coming in. If elections is going to happen, let it happen in a constitutional way. Okay. If those ones are adhered to, then I'm okay to go along with you guys. So then it happens that around, I think it's the following day or the day after, you know, I didn't wake up early that day, but then I'm getting calls from my friends and they're telling me, hey, Bavon, federation inafanya elections leo. So the guy, election gani? So I say, Asieta ndio iko mtandao, so someone sends me a link. So when I open the link, I see Ronnie has put his poster there, he's running for president, or there's elections will happen at Ngong Hill hotels, sijui nini, a lot of those things. So quickly I share that link with Ronnie, the chairman and the secretary general. And I call them, so I follow up with the call. So Ronnie doesn't pick my calls, the chairman doesn't pick my calls, nobody's picking my calls. Then I, you know, everybody else who's calling me, I tell them, listen, if these guys are running some elections, let them run those elections. You know, I can't be part of those elections. But at some point, around 9 a.m., I get this message from Big Mo that if you don't come, hata hiyo position yako ya CEO utaipoteza. you know. So kind of they want me to come in so that I can endorse that process. So I tell Big Mo, no, you go ahead and just do your election, you know. I will not show up, I will not come. So eventually they ran the elections, and you know, now we're seeing that in the media, is playing out in the media. So there was no election. What they did is they picked their friends. Even Mudavadi's son got a position in the federation. You know? He's in the newspapers receiving certificates. I don't know for what. You know, they just pulled in their friends, took pictures, and now they've come around and they're saying they have control of the federation, and so they're calling up every partner saying that now there's a new board in place.
My official names are Brian Dianga. I go by the names Beast, and the names Beast came from the profession I do. I'm a professional esports athlete, and I've been in the gaming since the year 2013, and I just do a lot of things around gaming. So it's mentorship, it's coaching, participating in tournaments, consulting. So my association with the Esports Federation started somewhere this year, and it's I've been consulting with them. The people who took over, number one, if you look at the team, it doesn't make sense. And if I look at that team, these people have not even been stakeholders in esports. They don't know anything that is going around or happening on the ground in terms of esports. So that was number one. Number two, nobody in the community was approached, and anybody who tried to access the venue where the voting was happening was either kicked out, and even we have cases where people were hurt and they had to go to hospital. Somebody's arm was twisted, and this is somebody who has contributed so much in the esports scene. This one should have been even a VIP in that space, you know. So when I look at this and I look at it as our start, I'm like, no, that's a very shitty start. We cannot start with that. Like, we want a story even whereby we sit down and say, this is how the Esports Federation was voted and this happened, not something like that, you know. And then the representation as well. I mean, how will you have that team that doesn't understand esports and then say that, oh, they will go and represent us? They will represent what? Like, what are they going to take as our challenges? Even if I go and tell you, so this is my challenge, the way I tell it to you, the way you tell it to the next person, it will be a different translation, right?
What justice looks to me is, I'd wish that we have a situation where, you know, we get either a federation, the former federation reinstated. The federation is in the process of doing an election, so we are allowed to run a free and fair election for the whole country to participate, and as per the constitution, how it's laid out. You know, if that happens, then, you know, the outcome of that will be, I'll be okay with it. If Ronnie runs, if Mudavadi runs, the kids run and win, is okay. You know, but it has to be done fair. You know, not the way they've done.